All right.
And
let's go.
Let's do it. Yes. All right. Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Irish Breakdown Podcast, a special edition of the Irish Breakdown Podcast. It is a commitment night for top 50 linebacker Jaylen Sneed. And we are efforting to get that live video when it starts. We do not believe it has started yet, but we're going to kick things off. We're going to talk a little bit about Mr. Sneed and what it would mean to Notre Dame if he happens to commit to Notre Dame, what it means if he doesn't commit to Notre Dame, all of those different things. But we're going to talk about him as a player first because we don't know what the decision is going to be. Once that decision is made public, then we will dive into what that decision is. You're just laughing at me. I'm trying to keep this as professional as possible, Mr. Driscoll.
Yeah. No, it's look, this is a big one for Notre Dame, right?
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, they've got to. They got.
He instantly becomes the best player in the class, right? I mean, if he comes in,
depends on the service.
Okay.
I'll get. Yeah. So first of all, his coach just said that they're delaying the announcement till 7:15. So I'll give us plenty of time to talk about him. But,
all right.
Look, this is a big one for Notre Dame because number one, you've invested a lot of time in it. So when you invest that kind of time, you want to make it happen. So they got to make it happen. I think this is another big one from the standpoint of obviously linebacker is a big need in this class. You needed numbers and you needed talent. Just three linebackers wasn't going to get it done. You needed at least three linebackers going to flat out play. They already have three linebackers going to flat out play. They get a chance to add a fourth if you can get Jaylen Sneed in the class. You also have a lot of versatility in that class. That's another important thing. Outside of Junior Tuihalamaka, who's probably the most kind of position-specific player, between Burnham and Sneed and Nolan Ziegler, they could all play together. And that's important too. That gives Marcus Freeman a lot of flexibility, again, assuming that they add him to the class. So that's a very important piece of this too, Vince. And so when you look at Jaylen Sneed, you look at practical impact, which is what we care more about than a recruiting rankings.
Sure, absolutely.
Practical impact, this is a very talented, athletic player that fits your aggressive, athletic, rangy defense because as we saw with Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, as we saw with Drew Tranquill, when you have athletic linebackers that can run, that can hit, that can cover, that can blitz, and can do all those kind of things, you can do a lot of different things at the linebacker position. And now you're adding multiple guys like that because you've got, if you're able to get Jaylen Sneed, you'd have him with Josh Burnham and Nolan Ziegler. So just give him a ton of versatility, a ton of flexibility. So that's a piece of this too. Now we're going to find here, hopefully in the next 10 minutes, if it's going to end up, if all the work is going to be worth it, and it's been a very interesting recruitment. Notre Dame was in the lead for a long time. He visited back in March. It really starts off, what makes it even more interesting is love Clark Lee, great coach, right? Did so many good things in Notre Dame. Awesome human being. But the reality is this linebacker class looks a whole lot different if he's still here.
No doubt.
And Notre Dame didn't even offer Jaylen Sneed and Junior Tuihalamaka when Coach Lee was here. That's obviously a piece to this and shows why I think their linebackers recruiting with outside of one guy in 2 years really struggled. So you look at what Marcus Freeman was able to come in and do, gets the offer to Tuihalamaka, gets the offer to Jaylen Sneed, makes a hard push for Josh Burnham, and was able to really make Notre Dame the leader in this recruitment. Then you look at Oregon comes on strong. We're in that generation of teenagers that grew up beginning with the Chip Kelly, then into the Marcus Mariota Oregon football team.
Yeah.
With the jerseys and the uniform and the flash. So we're seeing a lot of kids grew up as Oregon fans. That's also something that was working in Oregon's favor. They made a hard push, even up to recently with, now that the NIL stuff, that's a team that's going to be throwing around a lot of cash at kids.
Absolutely.
With the Phil Knight and the Nike money. I mean, they've already been throwing it around. Now they can do it legally. That's going to be a really. I'm kidding. I love Oregon. I'm just being funny, trying to be funny anyway. Vince thought it was funny, so
I did.
That's good enough for me.
I thought it was funny. It was good
so
stuff.
so that's an important piece of this too, Vince. Is this is a program that's kind of considered a hot program, especially with what Tim DeRuyter's done a good job. Mario Cristobal's really, brought them out of some of the doldrums that we saw from the end of the coach. What's his name? Helfrich, right?
Helfrich.
And then of course Willie Taggart didn't do that great of a job. So they're rebuilding from that. So you're able to get a kid that grew up an Oregon fan. Again, this is assuming Notre Dame is going to get him, and we'll find out for sure. We're talking hypothetically of what this commitment would mean for Notre Dame. And then you look at it from the standpoint of how it fits into your class. Oregon makes that hard push. If you can win this one, it's just another big win of a top recruit. To your point, Vince, about him being the top-ranked player, it depends.
Right.
He would be the top-ranked player according to Rivals, because he's ranked number 46. He would be the top-ranked player in the composite list as well, because I think he's 70th.
Okay.
And so he would be the highest there. So I think that part would be impactful.
Is he highest for you? I mean, in your
he's
rankings?
Not even the highest linebacker for me, which again, he is a top 100 player for me. He is a top 50 to 75 player to me. But I have Josh Burnham slightly ahead of him by like 2 points. And now, so to put in the context, that's on a scale where their total points are in the 680s and 690s. So to be 2 points better is like a minuscule thing that could simply be cleared up by Jaylen Sneed improving his technique slightly, or Josh Burnham, making improvements technique-wise. I mean, they're very, very close. It's essentially, who do you want at your linebacker? Do you want Jalen Smith, or do you want Manti Te'o, or do you want Jeremy? You know what I mean? It's like that kind of thing where it's like, which great prospect would you want in this class? And that's really where it comes down to for me. It's almost kind of like pick your – it's one of those things where, Vince, I have my opinion, but if you were to say, hey, Brian, I think Jaylen Sneed's better than Josh Burnham, I'm like, okay.
It's a discussion that we can absolutely have. Yeah, right.
So, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, I got no beef with that, and that's where you want to be. It's like, which defensive end has a higher upside? Is it Tyson Ford or is it Aiden Guerrero? We could have that argument. Who's the better corner? Is it Devin Moore? Is it Jaden Mickey? Should they, if they're able to land Benjamin Morrison, would it be him? Those are the arguments you want to have. You don't want to have like that 2 or 3 top players and then there's a drop off. And that's where Notre Dame has been in recent years. Landing a player like Jaylen Sneed, should they make it happen? Again, he hasn't announced yet. We're going to tell you what he's going to do here. We're not going to tell you what he's going to do.
He's going to tell you.
At the end of the day, I think I know, but a lot of Notre Dame fans thought Lorenzo Booker was picking Notre Dame too. So I don't want to jinx it. It's probably knock on wood a little bit. But he's a very unique player, Vince. And as we're kind of waiting, we're going to pull up some film here. And, I've kind of gone through his film, Vince, but I want to kind of give you a chance to kind of go through it and just tell me what you see. And just, you tell me where you think he should rank on their board.
Well, I can tell you right now, just from an athletic standpoint, and this is his sophomore film, I believe, Brian, because he played linebacker as a sophomore.
Yeah, his sophomore film when he's wearing number 17, or when he's wearing number 17, that's sophomore film as a linebacker. Right. When we get to him wearing number 3, that's his junior film when he moved to defensive end, which his high school coach said, we just needed him to do that to help our team win football games, which is the high school coach's number one priority. Yeah,
that's exactly right. And it's clear that he's a team player because he's playing at a position that he is not even getting recruited at, really, at defensive end. He's playing at linebacker. And so if we watch his film here, he's got a great first step, and he diagnoses plays extremely quickly. And you can see him just fly to the football as an outside linebacker. And now there you can see him in coverage and, a good drop, quickly hit his mark, and then comes downhill quick. Obviously, he's not afraid to hit. He plays linebacker. He plays defensive end. So he's pretty decent in coverage, which is great to see. You can see he's a stand-up end there, just goes right around the tackle. So you can see that first step, which is fantastic. And again, this is his sophomore film. Okay, so this is when he's like a 15-year-old. All right, so you got to keep that in mind because he's a big, long, rangy athlete. And of course, why not put him on offense and have him run a wheel route?
Hey, and why just not? So you know, Vince, we got a couple little super chats. Clint Duggar, no question, just love listening. Thanks for all the time spent. Thanks, question Clint. About it. I mean, hey, look, we have to show up and talk about a stud recruit picking Notre Dame. It's a tough life we live.
It is really hard.
Got another super chat from Ryan Feeks. With this linebacker class, where does Drake Bowen fit in? Ryan, we will get to that. I wanted to definitely get your super chat in there because we appreciate it. We will definitely get to that question. I'm writing it down right now just in case it gets bumped because there's a lot of people in here and a lot of questions,
which is great.
We will get to that when we kind of know what's going on and we know exactly what this linebacker class is going to look like. So appreciate the super chats from both of you. very much. Now let's get back to your regularly scheduled film breakdown session with Vince D'Addario.
And again, we are hearing that his commitment is going to come at 7:15. So as soon as we have it, we will throw it up once they go live. So this is his junior film. He's playing defensive end, which, by the way, just in case anybody's curious, going from outside linebacker to defensive end, while it may not seem difficult, it is a challenge. You've got your hand in the dirt. You're starting from a different place, and he's still. Thanks, Nick. It's a super chat from Nick Baker. Really, really appreciate it. No question. Just dropping it. And we appreciate it very, very much, Nick. But you can see he's still got that really quick first step, able to get around tackles. And that shows his versatility. And we've talked about it a bunch. This defense values versatility. They value it. And so speed. Yeah, and speed. And he's got that. And he's got athleticism. He's long. He's athletic. The fact that he can put his hand in the dirt, the fact that he can go in a 2-point stance, all of those things make him that much more valuable in Marcus Freeman's defense, period. Because you could see him, if he's playing at Notre Dame, you could see him put his hand in the dirt maybe on a third down on a pass rush situation. You could see him back at linebacker as an outside linebacker going into coverage. Again, the versatility of these guys is what Marcus Freeman, all of the defensive coaches just absolutely love about guys like Jaylen Sneed. No problem. So it is so much fun to watch a kid like this who is not only very, very good at the position he's
Vince, it does look like he is.
Okay. Let's do it.
He is ready to go. So let's. Can you?
I can be excited. I'm putting my fan hat on.
Let's listen to Jaylen talk.
University of Notre Dame. Go Irish.
See if he's going to talk at all. This is big for Notre Dame.
Huge.
No question about it.
We've only done 2 of these, so you and Mr. Ford. So we would have you do is state your name, what sport you play, what university you chose, and a little bit about why.
What's all this stuff? This silence is kind of okay. Let's
Jaylen Sneed. I play football at Peter. I'm choosing the University of Notre Dame because it just like when I stepped on campus, it just felt like home. It felt like the place I wanted to be and where I needed to be. It just felt like the whole family atmosphere of it, the tradition of it, like just the way they play football is just the way I want to play
Media, do you have any questions here, or do you want a one-on-one?
Yeah, we're gonna do one-on-one. That's cool.
Do one-on-one?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there you have it. Jaylen Sneed has committed to the University of Notre Dame. Notre Dame now has the best linebacker class in the country to the point they already had it. Now it's to the point, Vince, where no one's catching them.
Right.
It
Doesn't matter what happens
happening.
between now and February.
Unless Harold Perkins and Sean Murphy and then, I don't know, CJ Hicks decides to decommit and go to somewhere wherever Harold Perkins and Sean Murphy are going, this is going to be the best linebacker class for Notre Dame. And with Jaylen Sneed in it, this is the best linebacker class Notre Dame has landed in 20 years, in my opinion. And look, they've had some really good linebacker classes in the past. Obviously, the Jalen Smith class, you had Michael Deeb and Doug Randolph. And of course, Jaylen Smith was special. Jaylen Smith was a freak.
For sure.
But there was a big drop-off between Jaylen Smith and the next guy. So if we were ranking the 2013 linebacker class and the 2022 linebacker class, and we're going to rank all those players as prospects, you'd have Jaylen Smith number 1. I would argue that the next four guys would be guys from the 2022 class.
2, 3, 4, 5.
And that's no disrespect to Doug Randolph, who was a top 250 kind of caliber recruit. So, I think it's a situation, Vince, where you talk about Marcus. You talk about announcing your presence with authority, right? What's the movie's that from, right? I can't remember what that's from, but
that is fantastic. Yeah.
He has shown up as a recruiter at Notre Dame, has not even coached a game yet, and everyone's trying to anoint him as the next head coach at Notre Dame because of this.
Yes.
Right? Because of the work he's doing, because of the passion he shows for the university. But this is big time, Vince, because again, you're talking about you went into Michigan,
Bull Durham,
beat the Wolverines.
Answer, by the way.
Right, there you go, Nuke LaLoosh.
Yeah.
You go into Michigan, beat the Wolverines for a kid that grew up, a top 100 recruit who grew up a Michigan fan, right? You go out to California, get you offer Junior Tuilamaka, and 2 days later he decommits from your rival, USC.
That was telling.
And then you beat Texas for him. Then you go into South Carolina, into SEC country, and you beat them and Oregon, the school that the kid grew up rooting for Jaylen Sneed. That's 3 linebackers that are ranked as top 100 recruits by at least one recruiting service. 3.
Right.
That is a big-time class, and they're all different.
2 of which Notre Dame wasn't even involved with before Marcus Freeman showed up.
Right.
And we did a Marcus Freeman show earlier today that I would love for everybody to go back and check out. But I'll tell you what, Marcus Freeman is making waves here. And there's some chat over there about, is Marcus Freeman the linebackers coach? Yeah, he's the linebackers coach. And he's also the defensive coordinator,
it's
obviously.
It's a direct reflection. This is even more of a direct
Absolutely.
reflection of the work he's doing because it is the position that he coaches.
Yes.
And so not only are you showing kids, hey, look, you want to come play for me and all that kind of stuff, but even more importantly, it's the kids that are directly going to play for him. There's a great deal of excitement there too.
Right.
So this is just a big time commitment. And honestly, if anything, this is a situation where the talent that you what did we talk about that kicked today's show off with, Vince? We kicked today's show off by talking about a kid who saw the talent and depth that Notre Dame had a linebacker or defensive end and said, hey, you know what? I don't know if that's the place for me. Well, Jaylen Sneed had every opportunity to say, you know what? With all that talent that Notre Dame has, I don't really know if this is the smartest idea in the world for me to do this. And he said, no, I want that. I embrace that. That's a positive for me. And so I think that is a big part of this too, is you talk about wanting a kid that wants to compete. You signed Prince Kiley last year. You already have commitments from Nolan Ziegler, Josh Burnham, and Junior Tuilamaka, and Jaylen Sneed says, okay, I'm next, right? Let's go do this thing.
Because he could have easily looked at the class that's already there and been like, you know what? I can go be the dude. I can go be the guy someplace else, quicker chance to get on the field, et cetera. Now, he looked at this class and said, oh, that's the best linebacker class in the country. I want to be a part of that. And and you can't tell me kids don't look at that kind of stuff.
Right.
Because they do. He knows darn well the class that he's stepping up in. And we talked about this a few shows ago, Brian, about when they brought certain kids in, they brought in other linebackers and said, look, this is how you play together. We're not asking you necessarily to come in and compete for one position. We are talking about having you guys play on the field at the same time. And this is what it looks like. And I think that's absolutely huge because any question these kids might have had, like, oh, you're recruiting him to take my spot or whatever. No, man, we're going to put that talent on the field at the same time.
So let's go back and talk through this. Okay. And I want to, now that he's committed, we can put it all out there, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yes. How did it go down, Brian?
This is a very interesting recruitment. So
we got a super chat I want to throw up just because.
Yeah, get it from Mike. Yeah,
let's throwing up super chats. Mike Padone, my man, thank you very much. He says, great get by the defensive staff. Best since Vinny Serrato.
Yeah.
2 footballs.
This would be a great night. This is one of those nights, Vince, where I especially miss Lou. And Samoji. I'm talking about Lou Samoji.
Yes.
Because this would have been one of those nights where I called Lou up and say, hey, Lou, okay, best linebacker class since. And then he would have rattled off like a few that maybe are in contention,
2 seconds.
And then I would have felt better about me saying, yeah, this is the best one of the last 20 years. But, you look at it, Vince, and you say, okay, got in on him in January. And I said at the time, hey, good on you from the coaching staff, and Alex Dunbar with the super chat. Alex, appreciate that very, very much. He said, hey, look, I said at the time, this staff has now twice made me look real stupid. for saying, it's cool that you're offering him, but you got no chance, right?
Right.
Brendan Vernon was one, and now Jaylen Sneed. Although Jaylen Sneed actually came first, and I'll get to that. So you offer him January 18th, and I'm like, hey, you know what? I love, and I actually wrote an article about this at the time. Hey, I don't think they're going to get a lot of these guys, but, good on Marcus Freeman to come in and say, hey, I'm going to go against the big boys for the best recruits, consensus top 100 recruit, and not your typical kind of Notre Dame, kid from a region. You don't normally have Notre Dame a ton of success. I mean, you've had Troy Pride and Chris Brown and Everett Golson, but not a lot, right? So they get on him, and Marcus Freeman right away builds that connection. And also, Marcus Freeman is good friends with BJ Payne, who's the head coach at Hilton Head. So that was another connection that you had that helped them. But so you've got that connection. Notre Dame had really climbed up his list. Tennessee was in there, Oregon was in there, other schools are in there. And he makes a visit in March, and he falls in love with Notre Dame. And that's basically it. He started telling people at that time that Notre Dame was the place to be. He was going
in March.
Never committed, never officially committed.
Sure.
But had basically said, this is where I want to be. Then he told the staff, hey, I'm going to come, but I want to come on the official and all that other kind of stuff first. So it wasn't an official commitment. That's why. And then in junior 2, Almaka did the same thing. Hey, I want to take this one visit, but I'm coming.
Yeah.
And that's when the staff decided to say no to Sebastian Cheeks, because what we can now say is that Sebastian Cheeks told people, I want to go to Notre Dame too. Notre Dame said, sorry, but we've already got these other 2 guys, essentially. That was a gutsy call because it wasn't given that they were going to commit. They had said, hey, I'm committing, but I'm going to take this other visit. AST 1, 2, 3, 2, 1. I love this. I think I love how it played out. Me too. So you go back to this. So they took a chance and said, hey, look, we're going to take a chance. We have confidence that we can get these kids. We're going to take a chance and still go after this kid. We're going to not go after this kid, Sebastian Cheeks, because we've got these 2 kids in the class. But they're not officially in the class. So you had to close. But that's the confidence Marcus Freeman had in himself that he could close on these 2 players. So he's coming. Then he takes the visit to Oregon a week before he visits Notre Dame. And that moved the needle to the point where some of the sources that I had that had told me Notre Dame were like, yeah, it's looking like it's going to be Oregon now. And they pushed the NIL stuff, the Phil Knight money, all that kind of stuff. They pushed it hard. Smart. It was very smart. And they also, in this, what you and I have said before, this isn't the Willie Taggart, Mark Helfrich, Oregon team, Oregon staff. Mario Cristobal is no joke. He's a good football coach. The guy won at Florida International. If you can win at Florida International, you can win anywhere. Coached at Alabama, has title rings. Played at the U. Then you go out and you hire Joe Moorhead a year ago. Great hire. Then you hire Tim DeRuyter this offseason to run the defense. Great hire. Oregon is also doing a great job of not only selling the glitz and the glamour. There's a lot more substance to what this coaching staff at Oregon is trying to sell. And it made a big impact. And then you can throw the flash. And I mean, they're still using the glitz and the glamour. Don't get me wrong.
And you should. They should, because that's what, when people think of Oregon, that's what you think of. You have to play to your strengths. I have no problem with that.
But they also are adding substance to it. So they put up a hard fight for this one. And to the point where, like I said, people were thinking Notre Dame was going to have a battle. Well, Notre Dame knew that coming into the visit. They had him come in that Monday after that first weekend, partly because they wanted him kind of by himself, and partly because he was going to attend the 7-on-7 camp that he dominated. And so this is, and by the way, this is not who, just a real quick comment from Ryan Feeks. That's what Freeman was referencing about telling a recruit to let it cool. That was not in reference to Jaylen Sneed.
No, it wasn't.
Similar situation, but it was never where he was going to commit to Oregon. It was more of like, hey, I'm leaning to Oregon. Let me go see Notre Dame again. And when he came on the visit, Notre Dame just absolutely hit a grand slam home run. Marcus Freeman knew what he had to do. Mike Elston, Mike Mickens, Brian Kelly knew what they needed to do, and they got it done. Before he left the campus that weekend, he committed to Notre Dame. Now, part of the reason that the commitment took so long is he wanted to go home and make sure that it was the right decision. Perfectly fine with that. Well, and as you saw from the video, the other part of the reason it took so long is because he had some production stuff he had to get done.
Right. He wanted to get the video out.
And so Oregon has known for over a week that he was coming to Notre Dame, and maybe 2. So this is why I kept saying, just let it play out, right? Don't worry about bat signals. Don't worry about this. Just trust me on this one. And so this was a big one for Notre Dame. And this is why Notre Dame started moving on to 2023 recruits, is because they thought, they were confident that they were going to get him and Junior Tuihalamaka in a class. So that's how his recruitment went down. It was looking great for a while. Oregon made it a little bit trickier than maybe we thought it was going to be. And then Notre Dame rallied back. And you know what they did, Vince? They closed.
That's right.
This is so important. They closed. We've seen similar situations happen on offense, and they can't get them back.
Going the other way. Yeah.
Right. And this class is closing. And that's such an important piece to this whole thing. Is it's great to put yourself in position to get there, but you got to be able to close. Jacob with the super chat. Jacob, thanks so much for that. I think you guys got to 910 live viewers. The community is where it's at for all things Notre Dame football. Go Irish, and thank you guys. We also got one from Mark Patrick. Patrick is so happy. He's like doing the Pharrell song, right? Like he's got that playing in the background. He's excited. A lot of Notre Dame fans excited. Matt Kustra, appreciate the super chat there. Do you see Ohio State recruit Freeman to join OSU in the next couple of years from the Zords podcast? It seems to love Notre Dame, love the show. I'm sure that they would try.
I don't see that.
The only way Ohio State's going to be able to get him is if Ryan Day goes to the NFL and they want to be the head coach. I mean,
exactly. He's not making a lateral move.
But you know what? I don't want to talk about that tonight. Matt, I appreciate your super chat very, very much.
Yes, I do too.
I do think he loves Notre Dame, and I do think the passion he showed in that interview is genuine. And that's not just me trying to say it is, but that's also from people I talk to. This is a guy that grew up in Ohio, so he didn't grow up that far from South Bend. He has, his wife's family's close by. It's not like they're super far away. This was a big one for Notre Dame. Kay Grant, appreciate that very, very much. Another super chat. Appreciate your hard work, guys. Yeah, it's tough having to get on here and talk football at 7:30 at night. And so when Vince was doing the breakdown, my wife got stuck in traffic, so she had to bring me dinner real late. So as Vince is talking, I'm trying to scarf down food, and the video ended, and I'm like, so I apologize for that. I still had food in my mouth.
That was great.
But this is a big one for Notre Dame, Vince. So when we talk practically, what does this mean for Notre Dame? Let's get down to the X's and O's of this aspect of this. Okay. So number one, they are recruiting Jaylen Sneed to be a rover first and foremost. So him and Nolan Ziegler are both starting off at rover. But what Notre Dame has talked to Jaylen Sneed about is ultimately he can play any linebacker positions in this defense. He can play will. He could play if they go to sort of a 3-4 personnel, because one of the things that I have heard that Notre Dame is contemplating having as maybe not their base package, but the base defense, but a definite thing that they can do is to go to a 3-3-5 out of 3-4 personnel. So what does that mean? It essentially means being able to line up with 3 defensive ends on the field, or 3 defensive linemen on the field, and then 3 linebackers in a stack alignment, and then being able to next go to the rover being, instead of being a 5th DB, is a player like a Nolan Ziegler, maybe perhaps a Jaylen Sneed or Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. In that instance, I think you would probably see Jaylen Sneed sort of be one of the 3 inside backers, because I think this is the rub. This is the difficult aspect of projecting Jaylen Sneed if you're Marcus Freeman. Number one, you talked about that explosiveness, that range, that coverage ability. There's a lot of things you see that remind you of Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah in that video, just that ability to just take a step and go in that. And I would argue that Jaylen Sneed has a lot better long speed than Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah did. That's obviously a big important piece of this as well. So you have that, and you say, hey, man, that's perfect for that rover position. Then you have the aspects of coming downhill, playing perimeter run, the screens and all those. So that part of it's really enticing. Nolan Ziegler also entices them in that regards. Then you look at it and say, but there's also the temptation of, yeah, but I want to get him closer to the ball. Mm-hmm. Do you really want him that far away from the ball?
So I think he could be a really good will too.
But in the 3-3-5, you could have him at will or as sort of like a Sam.
Right.
And that's what I'm saying, that I've heard that they kind of want to go 3-3-5, but out of 3-4 personnel. So what I mean by that is, you line up in your alignments. I'm going to see if I have any old things that we can show here, but I think I've deleted them all. But the thing is, you line up in a 3-3-5, and you've got your rover, 3 stack linebackers, and 3 defensive ends, and you look at it and say, okay, depending on what personnel you do, you can line up in different ways with this. And I think that's where Notre Dame is looking at this to say, hey, we can do a lot of different things with these linebackers, the athleticism, the versatility of these linebackers. Andrew Rhodes with the super chat. Appreciate that, Andrew. Between the defensive class and what Freeman said in the Zords podcast, I'm going to need someone to point me in the nearest brick wall. Hey, Andrew, can you just wait a few days for that? You're going to want to not do that just yet. Let's maybe Thursday night, Friday morning, you're going to maybe want to do that. Just hold off. And as what I'm going to tell you to do with the rest of the week, just
let it play out, baby.
Matt Romero with another super chat. Man, this is awesome, Matt. I appreciate it. Matt's Unite. Linebacker is going to be extremely deep. Go Irish. So,
in Marcus Freeman's defense, when the linebackers are deep, the sky is the limit for what he can do in this defense.
Right.
Is that appropriate to say, Brian? Because
you're talking about Jaylen Sneed? You're talking about?
Well, I'm just talking about Marcus Freeman. What Marcus Freeman can do when the linebackers are as deep as they are.
But I think the point is not so much that they have you're correct, but the point is he's recruiting to that.
Yeah.
And that's
good point.
So then you throw in Prince Colley in this. Prince Colley's another guy like Jaylen Sneed that could play Sam, he could play Will, he could play Rover. So the thing is, okay, well, you're let's just say that Jaylen Sneed is the highest ranked linebacker, which he is according to Rivals and on the composite list. Okay, so let's just go with that. So you say, okay, well, your best linebacker in this class is being projected to start at Rover. Your best linebacker in last year's class is being projected to start at Rover. And my response would be is that's exactly why you recruit versatile players.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is a situation where your two top linebackers can play together. They don't have to play the same position, even though they're both technically going to start at the same position. And so that's sort of the aspect that when you have versatile players like this, Vince, it makes it so important because you can play these guys together. And then you look at Josh Burnham, he could play Mike, he could play Will, he could play Sam. And then also, on third down, you have to ask yourself, you watch his junior highlights and say, do I want him in space covering? Or on third down, do I want him lined up off the edge and saying, go get the quarterback? And you can ask the same thing about Josh Burnham. And that's what's so exciting about this. The difference between this linebacker class and some of the ones in the past is just the athleticism top to bottom. I mean, when Junior Tuihalamaka is your fourth best athlete in the group, and there's a gap from athleticism between him and the next guy, Nolan Ziegler. Well, actually, you could even maybe say Nolan Ziegler should be higher, just pure athleticism. This is an incredibly long, rangy, athletic, versatile group of linebackers. And to your point, Vince, it gives him so much flexibility. Now, as they're younger, you're only going to be able to move them around so much. But once these guys and Prince Colley become like juniors and seniors together, goodness gracious. You talk about just being able to throw waves of linebackers at people.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's another aspect to this. You've now got the best linebacker class in the country. You have two top 150 defensive ends in the class. You've got really talented cornerback class already that Notre Dame hopes is going to get bigger on Thursday. Now you say to Anthony Lucas and Xavier to walk, but hey, you're all that's left.
Time to jump on board.
Do you want to go somewhere else and keep doing what they're already doing? Or do you want to come here and do something new? Cheers. Something hasn't been done in a while. And when you listen to Marcus Freeman talk to Chris Zorich, he understands what winning at Notre Dame can do for your career. I believe that. I think he understands, because I've said this before, you win at Notre Dame and you're a legend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's just a fact. And to be part of that as a linebacker, as a whatever, okay? And you're talking about a school there's only been one program in all of college football since Brian Kelly arrived in 2010. There's only been one program in college football that has 3 Butkus Award winners. There's only one.
Yeah.
It's Notre Dame.
It's something that goes into the sales pitch. Like I said earlier this afternoon, there's so many different ways that you can go to recruit a kid at Notre Dame. You can go the academic route. You can go to the preparation for the NFL route. You can go to the, playing for national champions route, and then all the different branches off of those 3, right? So, I mean, you just have to know the room. You have to be a good recruiter, obviously, to know what argument to use. But, man, Marcus Freeman's hitting all the right notes.
So, Vince, I'm getting frustrated because people aren't listening to me. Okay. I told people not to run through a brick wall yet. Mace didn't listen. Mace AK said, couldn't wait until Thursday. I'm spitting out pieces of brick as we speak. Go Irish. They didn't listen to me. We have another super chat from AST12321. If Drake Bowen, if we land Drake Bowen, meaning Notre Dame, where would he fit in this with this class? So obviously Drake Bowen's a 2023 kid, so Notre Dame's not recruiting him in this class. But as far as if they are to get him next year, he's another guy that fits into this thing. Drake to me is more of a Notre Dame has talked to him about being a rover, and you know what I think that they're doing? I think what they're doing, Vince, is they're basically just getting the most athletic players they can and saying we're going to start you at rover and then work inside, which to me is smart. It's easier to go from outs. I've always felt I feel this about the offensive line. I feel this about defensive line. I feel about linebacker. I feel it about secondary. It's easier to go outside in than it is to go inside out.
Sure.
It's easier to have more range and then you have to condense it than to be used to playing in condensed spaces and then now you have to go play in wider spaces. I believe that. So I kind of like that strategy. Drake Bowen is more, in my opinion, more like Josh Burnham than he is Jaylen Sneed. In that, I mean, he's more like Josh Burnham's athletic, but he's a big-bodied kid.
Yeah.
I see him being a Sam to Will type of guy. Drake Bowen to me is also similar to that. He's a very athletic kid, elite baseball player. Right now, his body projects to rover because he's 6'2", 215, but that's as a sophomore. He's going to be 225 plus, probably grow another inch by the time he's a junior or senior. So I see him being a Sam Mike Will too. All athletic. It's just where do they fit best? I think the two guys in this class and next year's class of the guys that fit in at rover the best are Nolan Ziegler, Jaylen Sneed, and then Sonny Styles are the three that I think are the more pure rovers. But again, all of them can play. I think Nolan Ziegler could eventually grow into an inside guy. And that's the exciting thing about this. And the other thing I've been told by a couple sources, Vince, is that Marcus Freeman is telling recruits and current players on the team, we are not playing three linebackers. We're not. We're going to treat our linebacking core kind of like our defensive line. A little different type of substitution, but we're going to be playing 5-6 guys a game.
Well, and I wanted to throw in there when you're talking about, guys building, muscle and all that fun stuff, and Kay Grant jumping in with another super chat. That's the second one tonight. You the man. When you have a guy like Matt Balis at your disposal who can recreate guys, if they've got the body to do it, which these guys do, that just adds to what you can do with the linebackers.
Vince, I talked to a dad of a recruit that's not looking at Notre Dame anymore. I was talking to him and he said, the best part of, he says, of all the schools that we're looking at, and his son had offers from Bama all over the place. He said the two most impressive strength programs that we saw were Notre Dame and Ohio State. And obviously, Mickey Marotti's been winning championships from Urban Meyer going back to the Florida days, right? Great strength and conditioning program. For Notre Dame to now be considered on that level just tells you everything that you need to know about the job that Balis has done. Right. And it seems like every year in the NFL draft, everybody's like, wow, I didn't realize this Notre Dame player is that explosive or that athletic. It's going all the way back to Drew Tranquill and then obviously Miles Boykin and Chase Claypool, and we would have seen similar things this year, I think, with Jeremiah Wusu-Koramoah would have put up just some stupid, agility and vertical and all those type of things. 40 wouldn't have been as good, but, when Troy Pride runs a 4.4 flat and we're all disappointed, like, wow, I thought he was going to be faster than that, So I kudos to Matt Balis, but the point being, guys like Sneed, Burnham, and Ziegler are exactly the kind of guys that Matt Balis loves. Long, kind of thin, still on. Even Josh Burnham, who's muscular, is still on the thin. He's only 210, 215 pounds. There's a lot of reshaping to be done there, but there's a lot of, they like to build it up. Notre Dame is one of the only strength programs I've ever heard of that tells kids don't put on weight before you get here. They don't want kids. They don't want kids just adding a bunch of weight. That's let us do that, because most likely that weight that you're going to put on is not going to be good weight. So when you look at Jaylen Sneed, they're not going to care if he shows up at 215. He'll be bigger than that when he shows up. Just because we all remember going from 17 to 18. You kind of hit a little bit there, but it's like don't worry about putting on weight. And so when you look at a guy like Jaylen Sneed, he's one of those guys. Josh Burnham's going to be this way. Nolan Ziegler's going to be this way. I believe they're the kind of athletes that get more explosive as they get into a college strength program, which is impressive when you consider where they already are. So there's just a lot to be excited about with this commitment. The linebacker class as a whole is just really special. And you talk about strong first impressions. I kind of feel like if Marcus Freeman just struck out in 2023 at linebacker, so what? Look at all the kids he got last year, But let's look ahead to that. I mean, what this commitment does
we don't want a class where there's no linebackers. I'm sorry. I mean, I know you're being hyperbolic. I get that, but like, shoot for the star.
There would be only an exception would be is if it's like a year where you've signed 2 years in a row and it's a down year. There's always exceptions, but to your point, I don't ever like not having a player to not having a player to position unless you're talking about kickers, punters, and long snappers, right?
Yeah, that's different. Yeah.
So yes, but the point is you look at 2023. So how does this class impact next year's class? Well, number one, Notre Dame went 1 over the need in the class, which means you don't have to get as many next year. I think 3 is probably the target, but now that you have 4 this year, you can settle for 2 next year, but I still think they're going to want 3. And there's a couple guys that are obviously on the top of the board. The top 2 players on the board right now, Sonny Styles and Drake Bowen. I think they're both elite top 25 players. Sonny Styles being a guy that people view as a top 15 caliber player. Notre Dame is now Notre Dame. Here's the deal, Vince. Now Notre Dame has their linebacker class in 2022. It's done. It's you got them.
Oh yeah.
So now, what other attention does Marcus Freeman have from a position standpoint than Sonny Styles and Drake Bowen and Tackett Curtis and Preston Zinter and guys like that? You know, if I'm competing against him for those players, I'd be getting a little bit nervous right now.
Oh yeah, because he can turn all of his attention to the 23 class, and mind you, he's still got Xavier Nwankpa on the board in the 22 class. He's got Anthony
now he
Lucas
can focus his 2022 attention on them.
That's exactly right, and he's not even worried about linebacker anymore. He's worried about these elite guys still on the board and turning his attention to the 23 class at linebacker. So,
I think the fact that the top 2 linebacker, look, the top 2 players on the board at this position, and again, when I mean position, I mean linebackers as a whole, all the different positions within that. The two players that are at the top of the board are both local kids too. And Columbus, Ohio is a hop and a skip from South Bend, Ohio, and obviously Drake Bowen is an Indiana kid, which is a huge piece of that as well. So we got a couple super chats here, Vince.
Hit them.
AST12321. I love your long form coverage on anything relevant to Notre Dame football. As someone who loves to go deep on things that interest me, I love getting a full dive into every newsworthy Notre Dame football item. I love doing it too.
You're gonna get.
I'm glad that you like it because I love giving it. So, that's what makes this a lot of fun. But I also very much appreciate the super chat, very much. And then Anthony Shea also just giving us doesn't he have a question, so I appreciate that very much. But this is a big one for Notre Dame. So
huge.
Yeah. So, I mean, and again, this is Marcus Freeman. This is Mike Elston. This is Brian Kelly. This is
for sure.
The staff is getting after it, and we talked a lot about that today. So you now have 10 commitments on defense. This is the 18th commitment in the class, the 10th on defense, the 4th linebacker, the 7th guy for the front 7. So you could literally go, with a full front 7 right now, the 3-3-4, the 3-3-5 or the 3-4 personnel we just talked about, right?
Sure could.
And now you just got to go add one more DB and say, okay, we got a starting 11. So, and then like you said, they won't be done. So it's exciting because the success in this class, Vince, the way recruiting works is when you have the kind of class Notre Dame is having, that's great. But when you can get it done as early as they have, it now allows you to go to the next level.
That was going to be my point. It's July 12th. Okay. It's July 12th. We are not sitting here in the middle of January talking about Notre Dame's class being completed, right? It's the middle of July, haven't even started fall camp. And we're talking about the fact that, Notre Dame's linebacking core is done, right? And they've got a couple of really top guys that they still want to grab in Xavier Nwankpa, Anthony Lucas. Like, those are some top guys that are still on the board, and Brian is back with his gap.
I didn't want to give it away. That's why they wear the gap closer shirt. But now he's in the class, and now we can. I
just have my regular IB shirt on.
Yep.
So
you don't have a gap closer shirt, do you?
My son does. I can have him come down and model it, but
it's okay.
Nobody wants to see that.
Okay.
But like I said, it's the middle of July. It's not the middle of January. Right. Like there's so much time left to just nail down those last couple guys, and then you turn your attention to the next class because
you're going to do both now. I mean, that's the thing.
Important.
You can do both because the 2022 group is so small. You're. I mean, here's the thing. This staff is. Here's the other thing about this, Vince. this whole time that they're putting together this 2022 class, they've been on these 2023 kids for months.
Mm-hmm. So they got 2 really, really good commitments already in that class.
But what I was going to say before ND Mike called me out for not having the gap closer shirt on, and I had to take a little time out to go change gear. I got all these Irish breakdown clothes like hanging up over here, so it was a quick, easy fix. But what I was going to say was about it is when you get it this early, it snowballs.
Yes.
Because it builds into next year. You get a faster start on next year. While, Clemson and Alabama right now have smaller classes. Now, their coaches are great at what they do. They're going to be recruiting 2023 kids as well. But Notre Dame's going to be putting all their resources, at linebacker resources, to this.
Yeah.
So Marcus Freeman can say to Nick Lazinski, hey, man, you ain't got nothing else to worry about in 2022. Right? So here's what we're doing.
Right.
And that's a big part of it. So this is a big one for Notre Dame.
It's a good night.
So.
It's a good night for Notre Dame. It's a good night to be a Notre Dame fan. I'm glad that the pressure is now off of your shoulders, Brian. We let it play out, and it was
this is why, like D-Rock says, trust the tea leaves. Like I don't know what else sometimes I can say besides just let it play out. But Alec, I want to answer this question from Alex Dunbar. If we get Anthony Lucas, will Coach D cut the sleeves off his gap closer T-shirt? No, I will not. You don't want to see that. This gun show is not something that people necessarily want to see.
That's pretty good. There's a little something there.
Yeah, it's called 2 shirts. I have an undershirt on underneath those. So, yeah, do some push-ups beforehand. But no, I will not be doing that. But yeah, I will be pretty fired up for Notre Dame. I mean, at that point in time, but
no doubt,
it's a big one. And so, look, here's the deal with the way that it went tonight. This is obviously we lost a million questions that we had here, but we're gonna try to get through some questions. If you asked us a question early and we don't get to it, just know that we had at one point over 900 people in the live stream. We're down to 497 now.
Down,
which we appreciate. Everybody making time tonight to be part of this. We appreciate you. But let's get to some questions, Vince. And let's talk about this a little bit.
As far up as I can go, right? Here we go. Nick Baker. He says, where do coaches gather all this recruit info on players?
Oh, it's all over the place. I mean, some of it, there's actually recruiting services, not like Rivals 24/7, but actual recruiting services that give information. Hey, here's the 2024 kids at this high school. And a lot of that's, they send out questionnaires to coaches and they gather academic information, contact information that, so coaches will pay for that kind of stuff. High school coaches, you talk to high school coaches. Hey, who are you? So, if I'm coaching at Notre Dame right now and I go to Pickerington Central last year to visit Lorenzo Styles, when I'm talking to this high school coach, we're talking about Sonny. We're talking about kids in the 2024 class I need to keep an eye on. Those are aspects of it. And then, of course, you have your back office people just constantly scouring the country for kids, and sometimes I found kids that, hey, I'm recruiting this other kid and this other kid just keeps popping on film, or if I'm at a game, This other kid keeps popping, showing off to me. And I'm not showing off to me, but I just love what I'm seeing from them. Say, I'm going to go recruit that kid.
Well, there's coaches that coaches trust. There's high school coaches that college coaches trust, right? So, you might get a call from a college coach like, hey, is there anybody in your conference that is really standing out or somebody that we should be looking at? And high school coaches develop that relationship with college coaches, and that kind of stuff is very helpful. Through the Huddle program, you can send packages.
So easy to get film to kids too. Yeah,
you can send packages to coaches, full game film, highlight film, all that different stuff, and it's like a click of a button. It is so simple for a high school coach to send that stuff out about their kids. So a high school coach really is the first line of defense for their kids and getting those kids recruited.
Yeah.
So I will say that. I think we got a super chat, Brian.
We did. Corey D.
It says, I know Ohio State is killing it in recruiting as well, but make no mistake, they are taking notice of what Notre Dame is doing. We're America's team. So I don't know if I want to be associated with the Cowboys, but
No, what
your-
he's
your
saying
point-
is bump
I
the
know.
Cowboys. Notre
Your
Dame
point-
is America's team.
Your point is well taken, and I agree with you. The people are starting to take notice of what Marcus Freeman and the Notre Dame staff is doing.
Yeah,
there's no question.
And you
about
say,
it.
yeah, Ohio State's killing it in recruiting right now, but the point is so is Notre Dame, and that's the difference. There's not that gap anymore. If you look at Notre Dame's 2022 class compared to Ohio State's, there's areas where Ohio State's is a little bit better. There's areas where Notre Dame's is better.
Right.
That's where you're going to be.
Sure.
And look, I think Ohio State's secondary class is excellent. Some of those guys they have more higher ranked guys, but I think Notre Dame's got a shot with a couple kids. Say, what? Kids a little bit. I mean, I personally take Jaden Mickey and Devin Moore over Jair Brown personally, and I've said that for a while when it looked like Notre Dame had a shot with Jair Brown. I think they're better prospects. I think Jair I think the Ohio State thing helped his ranking.
Mm-hmm.
I think the camps and the 7-on-7s and all that, but.
Sure.
Those kids, I think, have better film. But there was an interesting question earlier that said, what is our starting defense going to be
in 2024
in 3 years? And that was an interesting question, because you look at it and you say, okay, well, I don't know if I can give you starting 11, but I think that you're looking at the last two classes, 2021 and 2022, and you're saying, okay, just from those groups, you've got two starting safeties and Justin Walters and Kerry G, plus somebody from corner is going to move. At cornerback, you're going to have Ryan Barnes and JoJo Johnson and Philip Riley and Chance Tucker and potentially Benjamin Morrison and Devin Moore and Jaden Mickey and Jaden Bellamy all battling for corner spots. And then a couple of those are going to move for depth there at linebacker. You have five guys, Prince Colley and the four kids in this class, all battling for spots. And then defensive line-wise, you've got Gabriel Rubio, I hope, as a nose. You got Donovan Heinisch as a nose. You've got Jason Onye as an end, Will Schweitzer as an end, and then, of course, you have the incoming players, Aiden Guevara and Tyson Ford. So, I mean, literally Notre Dame is now too deep at every spot, assuming you're going to move some of those corners around, because I don't think they're going to go four deep at corner and just have guys sitting at four string that can help them somewhere else. And I think that's the thing that that makes this an interesting and a fun thing to think about. But who's going to play?
Exercise.
I mean, there's going to be 2023 kids that are going to beat people out, and
sure, of course,
that's what makes it fun. But when you look at it, and just more from a practical recruiting standpoint, they've got a starting 11 and some depth in two classes. Then you go out and get if you're able to get an Anthony Lucas, if you're able to get a Benjamin Morrison, if you're able to get a Hero Canoe, if you're able to get a Xavier Nwakpa, now all of a sudden you're saying, your depth in just two classes is as good as anybody in college football. And the difference between Notre Dame potentially now and Notre Dame in past years is, in past years, Notre Dame's had elite talent, Vince. They have. I mean,
no doubt.
That 2012 team had three kids as good as anybody in the country. Four kids: Manti, Lewis Nix, Stephon Tuitt, and Capron Lewis Moore. I'll take that four against anybody. But then there was Dan Fox in another spot, Matthias Farley at a spot, and you say, okay, well, and then you look at the backups at those positions, and it's like, and now you're looking at Notre Dame and you're saying, look, you've got Prince Colley and Jaylen Sneed and Josh Burnham, Junior Tuilamaka and Dolan Ziegler are really outstanding players. Somebody's not going to start. Maybe two somebodies aren't going to start.
Right.
You look at Gabriel Rubio and Tyson Ford and Jason Onye and Aiden Guevara and Donovan. Somebody's not going to start in that group. Somebody's going to start in that group. The list of 43 corners they've had committed in the last two classes, somebody's not going to start. And that's really where you want to be, because it's about depth now. Because another reason is not just from practical depth, but when you have depth of talent, then when a guy misses, you miss on a guy, or a guy gets hurt, or a guy leaves, you're not in that situation where you're crushed by it, because you're like, okay, fine. He doesn't want to be here and compete. That's fine. We got 7 other dudes that are ready to go. And that's honestly where you need to be. It's not just about getting the top level players. It's about getting top guy. And if you look at the Notre Dame class so far, at linebacker and defensive line, and now and at corner, with the exception of Komari Rogers, Notre Dame has got the guys they've wanted at every position in the front 7. And that's an impressive place to be. We got another super chat, Vince.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, go grab that.
Okay, Grant with another super chat. Appreciate it. Does Sneed get his 5th star before he walks on campus? Is this the last silent commit? This is the last silent commit of people that were silently committed and have stayed on board. Like there's one other guy that's a silent commit that's still out there. I don't know where that one's going to go, but yeah, but I don't necessarily count Jaylen Sneed as a silent commit because he was honest about still wanting to go visit Oregon.
Sure,
He's a silent commit from the last couple weeks, but he wasn't a silent commit from back in May
or March
when I was talking about silent commits.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
and,
right.
Yeah, so that's a little bit different there, but yeah, appreciate the super chat. Does he get a 5th star? Rivals, it'll be interesting to see what Rivals does. ESPN and 247 have him ranked number 97, which I think is too low in my opinion. Rivals had him at number 46, and then he went and won the linebacker MVP at their camp. Potentially, but honestly, I don't care. Yeah. And I think committing Notre Dame is going to hurt that chance, if we're being honest about getting that 5th star. But I don't care. He's really good. I don't care what his star ranking is.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we've established that.
The last Butkus Award winner was a 3-star that no one ever heard of until Mike Elko showed up and recruited him. So
exactly,
I don't care about that.
So Brian, I am being
dinner time
bellowed for. It is bedtime for the 5 and the Fab 5 upstairs, and so I've got to be involved. So, but hey. Super excited about what just went down tonight. I'm super excited about our IB community and everybody that jumped in tonight. I mean, wow, over 900 live viewers. That was awesome. It is so much fun to watch this thing grow with all of our family out there. So thank you.
Vince, before you go, you got to see this. You got to see this one. Tom Balork, IB needs to come out with a new Coach Freeman mug so we can drink our Freeman Kool-Aid out of it. That is awesome.
I'm on board with that. I'm on board. So everybody have a wonderful night, and I will be back with Brian tomorrow at 1:00, and for our normal.
We're gonna keep rolling. We're gonna keep rolling. But Vince, thanks for jumping on tonight. So I'll get to some more questions here, and again, I appreciate everybody with all their comments tonight. So let's just kind of get through these. I have some really good questions in here. Some comments if you want to share them. If we're at this point and I've missed some of your questions, just throw them in there and we'll get to them. As we've said before, StreamYard just kicks us down all the time. Elijah Mills says defensive line has always been stacked. Has always been a strong point of the team, and now it's looking like linebackers also going to be stacked. I mean, obviously development's going to be the key. We need to see these kids develop and stay healthy. But when you look at Clark Lee getting Prince Colley last year, now what Marcus Freeman's doing, and you look forward to potentially another great 2023 class, there's certainly opportunities for them to get to that point. So I think they're getting there. It's now about the next step is development. From a recruiting standpoint, you're absolutely right. Ryan Feeks asks, is Ziegler a tranquil player in this class? You know, there's a lot of similarities between him and Drew Tranquil from the standpoint of both were high school safeties that are being recruited to play linebacker, although Drew Tranquil did obviously start his Notre Dame career at safety. And I think Nolan could play that type of safety role too, although Notre Dame is, I think, wisely projecting him to play linebacker. I think he's longer than Drew is. I think he's probably a little bit faster than Drew was. Drew is a really explosive athlete, and we'll see if Nolan has that when he gets here. But I think he's got more raw tools than Drew had because Drew was just a really athletic player, but Drew was really smart. Nolan, I think, not only has the athleticism, but has that athleticism in a 6'4", long-limbed frame, and that was always an issue for Drew. Drew was kind of tall. He was like 6'2 plus, but he had really short arms. And I think Nolan's a little bit longer. But as far as role, I think the role that Drew Tranquil had post moving from safety is very similar to what I think Nolan Ziegler can do, in that you have a long, rangy, instinctive, athletic guy that can play rover. If he continues to add weight to that really impressive frame, you can easily see him slide inside to Will and be a really athletic, instinctive Will. And so, yeah, I think there's some good comps there, Ryan, and there's some comps that I like there, but I think Nolan's a little bit different because I think he's more of a pure linebacker, where Drew had to develop into a linebacker, I believe. And then Nicholas, I'm not sure. So we didn't get to this part. I'm not sure what you're referring to there. So if you don't mind following up with me, I'll get down to it. So I'm not quite sure what you're referring to there. Patrick says, I'm not going to be able to contain myself. Maybe Dell can get in this action. Dell. I think that they're starting to step it up a little bit. And this next month is going to tell us a lot about whether or not Notre Dame is going to be able to close on a couple of these guys. Look, I've said before, I think CJ Williams is going to make a commitment this summer, and Notre Dame's in a good position to get that commitment should it happen. I think if Tobias Merriweather makes a commitment this summer, I think Notre Dame would be the choice, but he's not set on making that decision. And so he may take this into the fall, which means he's not necessarily sold on Notre Dame being the choice. So it could be a little bit concerning. But if they can close on those two guys, that would certainly change our view of the offensive staff at this point in time. Corey D. Now, see, this is what I love. Notre Dame fans getting a little cocky. I love that. Corey D. I can't wait to take more stud 2023 recruits from Ohio State, like Styles, for example. It'd be nice. Be nice. They got some work to do. Dylan Hoffman back in the chat. Good to see him, Dylan. Could you see Sonny and Bowen be the only linebackers they take next year, given this loaded class and Prince Collie? Possibly. I think it just depends on some numbers at other positions. I think right now they probably would shoot for 3. I think there's some other kids that they like. But I could see them stop. I think 2's the minimum. I think they probably would shoot for 3, depending on what happens on the current depth chart at this point in time. Oh, this is great little Independence Day action from Oster Castaneda. Heck yeah, boys, time to kick the tires and light the fires. The heat coming at the QB from all over defensive front 7 will be electric. A lot of excitement in Notre Dame Nation tonight, no question about it. Tommy Gunn says 3rd and 10 plus, throw out 7 linebackers with everyone into 2-point stance, moving pre-snap and coming from everywhere. We'll see how that goes. Alex Dunbar. So, Alex, this is an interesting one. So Alex says linebacker U. I think the only way that you could say Notre Dame isn't in that conversation is if the only criteria is the NFL draft. And obviously Notre Dame has not had a first-round linebacker, although I think everyone with a brain recognizes that Jaylen Smith would have if he didn't get injured. But if you're looking at it from what they've done in college, how do you not have Notre Dame in that conversation? I mean, they've had 3 Butkus Award winners. Nobody else has done that. And they're not the only good linebackers they've had. I mean, Jeremiah Usu-Koromo won the Butkus. Jalen won the Butkus. Manti Te'o won the Butkus. But we've seen guys like Drew Tranquil. We've seen guys like Tavon Coney, Greer Martin. I mean, they've produced some good college linebackers. Niles Morgan for a couple years. Osmore Bilal was a pretty good player in his 1 year at Notre Dame. So, I mean, I think they've got to start producing a little bit higher impact in the draft to really get that moniker, but I think they deserve to be in the conversation, and right now they're not. Will says, thought Sonny is going to play safety. He's like already 6'5", 220 plus. He's already outgrown safety. So I think he's a guy that you're going to look at moving down. Logan August says, we need Williams, Bradshaw, Tobias Merriweather. Jake Pope probably finishes the class. I don't think that Jake Pope – I don't see that one happening. Whenever he makes his decision, we'll get more into it, but I don't see that one happening. And if you're a subscriber to Irish Breakdown's new message board, which you can see the link at the bottom of the screen, it's a premium message board. I explain kind of the Jake Pope situation a little bit, so you can check that out. Patrick says, is this kind of what it's like to be a Bama or Ohio State fan? I can get used to this. Yes, pretty much. I mean, because what have we seen? We've seen a really talented, high-ceiling player in Darren Agu decommit because he's concerned about the early path to playing time, which only is true if you're loaded. And we're seeing Notre Dame turn away a top 150 recruit in Sebastian Cheeks. There's been some really good football players that this Notre Dame defensive staff is going to turn away because they just ran out of room of even better players. And, yeah, that's what it's like at Ohio State and Alabama. And so you're getting there at least on that side of the ball. Now, what it's really like being an Alabama Ohio State fan is in Clemson is when you do it every single year. That's going to be the key. And you can't judge this staff that way because Mike Mickens has been here 2 years. So far, he's doing a pretty good job of it. And Marcus Freeman's in his first year, so he hasn't had the opportunity to develop consistency. But ultimately, at the end of the day, that's what's going to be. And then, of course, you have to do it on both sides of the ball. Matt D says, Bowen and Styles as our linebacker commits in 2023 would be amazing. 2 5-star linebackers to go with our 5-star DN, Brennan Vernon. And, again, don't forget about Keon Keeley. Now, look, I think Notre Dame has a good shot to land both of those guys, but they have to close. Neither one of those guys are going to be gimmies. I mean, Drake Bowen has been all over the country visiting schools. LSU wants him. Clemson wants him. There's a lot of big-time schools that want Drake Bowen. So he's not going to be easy. Just because he's from Indiana doesn't mean it's a gimme. Sonny Styles, just because his brother goes here, is not going to be a gimme. They're going to have to earn those. And so I would maybe not get too overconfident just yet, but I think they're at least I would rather be where Notre Dame is with both of those kids than where anybody else is. But as we can see, things things change. Kenny Moore regarding Jake Bowen says Drake fits anywhere he wants to. That's how talented he is. And that's the exciting thing is he's that way. Sonny Styles is that way. I can see Sonny Styles playing a whole lot of linebacker positions. I think Josh Burnham is that way. I think Prince Collie is that way. I think Nolan Ziegler's that way to a degree, although I don't see Nolan being like a Mike. But, as far as Rover, Will, Sam, there's so much talent and athleticism in that group. It's really, really exciting. Let's get down to some more questions. Chris for Indy 4L Forston says, could Nolan Ziegler play safety? Has Kyle Hamilton's size and athleticism? Close to the athleticism, definitely in the size. I just think Nolan is probably better suited to be a little closer to the ball with what Marcus Freeman wants to do. I'll say this. I think Nolan Ziegler in the 2012, I think in Bob Diaco's defense, Nolan could have played safety. I do believe that, because then you'd have to streamline. Hey, make sure you streamline them. Don't get too big. Those kind of things. But certainly, I wouldn't even have a problem if they miss out on some safeties, giving him a shot to start off there and just see if he can stick. But I think most likely he's a guy that's going to need to be a little bit closer to the ball. Joseph Salvatore says if we get Morrison Thursday, Lucas Nwankpa Canoe are the last pieces on defense. Big time recruiting, absolutely. John Hayes says, dare I say Hero Canoe eventually ends up at Notre Dame? We talked about this a little bit on the show today, John. It's possible. Obviously, Notre Dame got on him late. He'd already released a top 9 that included like Alabama, LSU, Clemson, Georgia, Ohio State, USC, Washington, just a really impressive list of schools. And then he added Notre Dame once they offered. I think they got a shot, but there's a lot of work to be done there. They're definitely in the ball game, that's for sure. There's no question about that. Let's get to some more questions here. Tyler says, Hamilton 6'4", 220, plays safety just fine. Let Sonny play anywhere he wants. See, that doesn't work, Tyler, because you can't just say, well, this guy's this size, so that means you let this. Kyle Hamilton's a unicorn, and he is rare for what he does. And Sonny Styles is already bigger than Kyle Hamilton. So that's what I'm saying. You can say 6'4", 220, but if you stood Sonny Styles next to Kyle Hamilton, Sonny Styles is bigger than Kyle Hamilton. I've been close to Kyle Hamilton, and I've been close to Sonny Styles in this last year. Sonny's already bigger than he is. But it's also not just about the size. It's about you. The size is step one. But number two, his game is, even in high school as a safety, his game is coming downhill. And you want to get him closer to the ball. He's not going to be. And here's the thing: if he's 6'5", 220, 225 now, he's not even a junior in high school yet. He's not going to stay at that size. All right, Brian Pearson switching to the team. Who is Notre Dame's starting quarterback this year? I believe that's going to be Jack Cohn. We'll have to see. He's going to have to beat some people out, but I believe it's going to be Jack Cohn. Appreciate everybody answering that one for me. Neil Corsorin says front 7 starters in 2 to 3 years off the top of your head. I don't know who they're going to be, but I don't think the starting matters as much as it used to be. It's going to be about the rotation. You've got Gabriel Rubio is going to be a factor in that conversation. I've heard that Jason Onye is having a great summer for Notre Dame. He's a guy that I've said has a very high ceiling that I think would have gone up in the rankings had he played his senior year. He only played 2 years of high school football. You look at the current class with Tyson Ford's going to be a mixture there. Aiden Gabera, Donovan Heinisch. You look at linebacker, Prince Collie with the 4 they got this year, and cornerback. I mean, they've got 7 committed cornerbacks in the last 2 classes, and then hopefully they're going to try to add Benjamin Morrison and trying to get him into that mix. So some of those guys are going to move around. So, who are the front 7 starters? I would say if I had to pick some guys that I feel confident they're going to be in there, there's really only 5 that I would say for sure I think are going to be starters. For sure, I would say Tyson Ford, Gabriel Rubio, Prince Collie, Josh Burnham, and Jaylen Sneed. I'd say probably guys I feel most confident in. But there's going to be some raging battles for those positions. And Tyler follows up, play him everywhere is my point. Yeah, everywhere and where his skill set is best suited. You're not going to put him at corner, right? You got to figure out what his skill set is best for and then use him in that way. And that's what I think that they'll end up doing with him. S says, Coach, speaking of Mickey and Marotti, he obviously has an amazing rep as a strength conditioning coach. Why didn't he succeed at Notre Dame? Well, I think he did. I mean, if you go back and look at some of the combine numbers that Notre Dame players did at the combine, I looked one year. Notre Dame had – I was doing some – when Drew Tranquill did what he did, I was trying to look and see how it compared to other linebackers. I think it was like Tyree Harrison one year had like an over a 40-inch vertical jump. I think Rocky Boyman had just a stupid vertical day. Notre Dame had a lot of kids that were putting up really good explosive numbers. The problem at Notre Dame, and I don't think this is a Mickey Marotti problem. Mickey Marotti, Matt Balis, they're not taking Division III kids and turning them into Notre Dame All-Americans, right? They're taking talent and they're getting the most out of that talent. But you got to give them the right tools, the right parts, right? It's like with anything. If you're going to build a car, I may build a car that looks just as good as your car, but if I'm working with rusted inferior parts, it's not going to be as good as your car that's working with brand new top of the shelf parts, right? It's the same thing with football players. The best strength conditioning coach in the world is going to maximize his players, but if my talent is only good enough to be 8-4, then it may not look like I'm doing a great job. I don't think he always had the best players to work with, and again, he's not calling plays. He's just the strength coach. At the end of the day, Matt Balis isn't calling plays against Alabama. He's just getting those guys ready to play. John A1, can't wait to see these guys play. Hoping Notre Dame brings intimidation back into college football. Who's the wide receiver running slant into Sneed and Jr.? It's a good point. Again, don't forget about Josh Burnham. DC, great show as always, guys. Got to go watch Home Run Derby. You have fun with that, DC. I hope you enjoy it. All right. Kenny Moore says, read that Styles is priority number 1 for Ohio State next cycle. He is, and so he's also that high for Notre Dame as well. Let's see. And so this is where Mike called me out. I didn't forget to wear it, but I felt like if I wore it, it would be kind of a giveaway that we knew what was going on here. So I didn't really want to get into that one. So Logan August says Trey Edwards, Sonny, and Derek. You know what? I watched some of Trey Edwards' film again recently. I'm not that high on him, to be honest with you. I think there's a lot of other linebackers that I would personally prefer over him. That's just my opinion. So let's get to some more questions here. Nolan says, I really hope this is an iron sharpen iron situation. The defensive coaches are embarrassing the offensive coaches, and I hope that motivates them to be better. The Irish freight train is rolling. It's a great way to look at it. Great way to look at it. Paul says, let's be real. Notre Dame has a front 18-21 with the depth they have. Forget front 7. I love the optimism. Love the optimism. John A1, I appreciate what you said in this chat, man. I really do. This is the best forum for college football, period. What a day. Notre Dame lands Jaylen Sneed, and we get a message board. It's July Christmas. Thanks, Irish Breakdown. Absolutely. Hopefully you've signed up for it already, John. But yeah, it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun, a lot of hard work, but yeah, it's an exciting time to be covering Notre Dame. There's no question about that. So we got bumped down a little bit more. All righty. Alex Dunbar says, I'll be there early September next year for OSU versus Notre Dame. So will I. So will I. Paul, we're going to keep working on that sleeveless look for Coach. Good luck with that. When I was a college football player and I was in the best shape of my life, I would occasionally wear sleeveless shirts when I was going to go work out. I am definitely not doing that now as a 40-something plus year old. All righty. Nolan says, I also respect the heck out of you guys for respecting the wish of these kids. You could easily let it slip for viewers, and I think it's great that you don't. You deserve all the success. I'll be honest, sometimes it's hard. And I mean, we kind of give some hints, but without coming out and saying it. But, man, when you keep getting asked the same question over and over again, sometimes I just want to yell, he's going to commit. Just calm down. He's already committed. He's silent. But I don't want to do that. But it's hard sometimes. No question about it. No question about it. Maceo Neal says, what's the outlook on a lot of these recruits coming in the spring to get that jump? This is kind of what's exciting about another change that Brian Kelly has implemented and his administration has gone along with it, is that's allowing more early enrollees. If you remember when Notre Dame first started letting early enrollees in, they only let 3 in at a time. Notre Dame had 13, 14 early enrollees this past year. So I think a lot of these kids are going to try to do that. The only thing I'm concerned about is how is the COVID year and how that impacted a lot of people academically. Could that potentially have an impact on kids being able to graduate early enough to come to Notre Dame? I don't know the answer to that, but it's something that in the back of my mind I'm a little concerned about and curious about to see how it plays out. Justin Nagel with the super chat. Thank you, Justin. Big time get. Also, any inside info from your buddy Adi on his boys landing a big NIL deal with Gary Fee? Yeah, so that's something that I've heard about about a week ago. And, it's up to them to kind of announce what it's going to be, but it's a big one. And if it does end up getting announced and it is what I think it could be something that's going to have a big impact on what Notre Dame is going to be able to do and sell with the NIL stuff. So it's going to be big time. Preston says, does Ohio State having 2 offensive tackle commits already help us with Wagner at all? We talked a little bit about that during an earlier show, Preston, so I would check that out a little bit, but I think it does. But short answer, I think it does, but I don't know if that's necessarily a guy that Notre Dame should take right now, to be honest with you. I think his ranking's a little bit higher than what it should be, in my opinion. Jeff Fluke says, I think with the amount of people in the room tonight proves just how big of a get Sneed really is. Everyone should be pumped. Absolutely. Technical Technician says, if I remember correctly, Driscoll was the only Indian media who didn't throw shade on Tranquil's athleticism. All it take was to see him run 11-100 in high school. Stereotypes suck. I agree with you on that. That was something that was very strange. Even after his career at Notre Dame, you had people saying he's not that good of an athlete. And when he went and did at the combine, what he did, people were like, well, surprised. And I'm like, how are you surprised if you not watched this kid play the last 4 years? Like, there were things you could criticize Drew Tranquil for, but athleticism was never one of them. Let's see if we got some more. Mike Padone, guys, how many silent commits are still on the board? Ask me that. No, I'm not going to say it. We'll see. Ask me that on the message board. I'll answer it there, but I'm maybe. But I think that the numbers are so small now that if I gave that answer, it would probably let people kind of figure it out. Alex Dunbar says, okay, we won't do it if we get Lucas, but everyone has a price. What's it going to take? Give the people what they want. I'll tell you what. Here's what I'll do. If Notre Dame wins a national championship, I will have a gap closed shirt, which I've already said I would do. I will wear that in my show, and it will be sleeveless. How about that? So if Notre Dame wins a championship, I'll have a gap closed T-shirt that I will have sleeveless. Does that work for you? So until then, there you go. All right. Let's see, we get some more questions here before we bounce out of here. Emma Eckstein says, Hero Canoe released a top 9 without Notre Dame. Is there any chance we land him? So, Emma, Notre Dame had not offered him yet when he released his top 9. When Notre Dame offered, he followed up the next day and he said, hey, I have a top 10, and he had the 9 that he originally had, and then underneath it, he replied with the big photo of Notre Dame. So Notre Dame is now in his top 10. And will they get him? I think it's too early to tell that, but I think they're going to have a shot. If they really put the pressure on him, if they really want him, I think they can have a shot to get him. I do. Robert Butcher says, does Cone have 1 or 2 years left because of injury and COVID? So I'm still trying to figure that out, because what I don't know is last year was supposed to be his last year. I don't know if you can get 2 years of eligibility out of 1. So he played 3 years, right? Like beyond the redshirt number of games. So last year was his 4th year of eligibility. Does he get the COVID year plus an injury year in 1 year? That's the only way he could get it. I don't think that's going to be the case. So I think he's going to have 1, but I've had other people who I know and respect who have said they think he's going to have 2. I still haven't got a straight answer on that. I will continue to try, but I think it's only going to be 1, but we'll find out. Richard Stevens into the chat. Very excited. Richard's from Huntsville, Alabama. So we got this will be someone from Alabama who's actually a Notre Dame fan, unlike our resident Alabama fan who jumps in. He's a good dude. So, all righty. D-Rock says, didn't Freeman say in the Zords podcast that they are now 3 deep on the D-line depth? He did say that. Vince and I were talking about that before earlier show where he said, because we were like, who would that be? And, so Viper would be Osita Ekwonu, and at strong side end it'd be Nana Osafo-Mensah, which is a great sign that Nana is coming along to make Marcus Freeman say that. But yeah, and I mean, they're absolutely loaded inside. I mean, they've got 7 interior players that could flat out play, which is just really, really impressive. Tony Stengel, absolutely love the vibe of this show and this group. A lot of smiles all around. This class has a buzz around it, and that I haven't seen in a long time. And look, the other thing, Tony, is that helps with finishing recruits. I mean, that buzz is going to be felt by Xavier Nwankpa, Anthony Lucas. That doesn't mean they're going to get those guys, but things like this help a ton. They really, really do. They absolutely do. Let's see here. Michael Campbell says, I still believe we need a 5-star signing for the national influence for the national TV audience. I just don't think that matters. Notre Dame signed a lot of 5-star guys in recent years. They signed a 5-star guy last year, 5-star guy the year before that, 5-star guy the year before that. It doesn't matter. What's going to matter for the national audience, Michael, is just go play. I mean, TV audience wasn't excited when Jeremiah Wusu-Koramoah signed. He played like a 5-star. He wasn't, but he played like one. And I think people were excited about that. And, recruits aren't looking at Jeremiah Wusu-Koramoah saying, oh, he's a 3-star. They're looking at him saying, hey, Buckus Award winner, unanimous All-American, top, 50-ish caliber draft pick. That's what people are going to care about more. Richard Stevens asks, how many more receivers will Notre Dame take? They will definitely take 2 more. I'm still trying to find out if they'll take a 4th or not. I don't have the answer to that just yet. Tracy Tipton, always awesome show as always, guys. Appreciate that, Tracy, very, very much. I appreciate, Adam, I appreciate the kind words you just left for me. I really do. Really, really do. Emma Leahy Bradshaw, did Notre Dame tell him not to visit, or did he have a family vacation conflict? My understanding, it was a kind of a combination of them telling him not to visit because they were having trouble getting all the details worked out. It was not a, hey, we don't want you anymore kind of thing, which is good to have found that out. So I don't think it was necessarily that. I think it was more of just, it was the logistics of getting those visits are not easy, and it was a little challenge for that one. Connor O'Doherty, who was the most underrated recruit in this cycle, in your opinion? Devin Moore right now. I mean, he's a 3-star recruit by ESPN and 247, and I don't know how you can watch his film and say 3-star recruit. And kudos to Tom Lloyd, because even though 247, the network he works for, has him as a 3-star, Tom and I have talked about this. I believe Tom has said this publicly. He's like me, sees him as a top 100 caliber player. And so, it takes some guts to maybe push back a little bit on the network you work for's narrative. So I think he's probably the most underrated player in the class right now. No question about it. No question about it. Scott Fessler. Scott, thank you so much for the big super chat. That is incredibly generous. I appreciate that a ton. And not even a question, just a super chat. So I really, really appreciate that. Really appreciate that very much. Very humbling night, and it's been a fun night. Helps cap off a really, really exciting night. So I appreciate that very much. Alex Dunbar said, BK has said they have their own evaluation on what it means to land a top 5 class. Do you think Notre Dame believes this will be a top 5 class come December? Yeah, I think they do. And BK's right. The top 5 classes from Rivals and 247, and again, this isn't a knock on them because it's hard to create a subjective class. It's points-based, and I've explained this before. So you get points for being a 6.0 or a 5.9 and then 4-star, where you rank nationally, and all of it factors in, and it's just points. You could have a class where you sign like 3 stud receivers, 2, a 5-star offensive lineman, really good linebackers, and a 5-star corner, but strike out at quarterback, sign 2 bum 3, offensive linemen, okay D-line and okay safeties, and you're going to have a top 5 class. Now, on the field, it's not a top 5 class. I think they put too much emphasis on 5-stars, and a guy that ranks 25th is going to be way more points than a guy that ranks 50th. I don't think that should be the case, but that's the process they came up with. I think to be a real top 5 class, you not only have to have impact talent, you have to have like high-level talent. You have to meet your needs. So you can have a great class, but if you struck out at 2 very important positions, then is that really a great class? Because you're going to struggle because if you're Florida State, you've seen it. They've had stud running backs and stud receivers and good quarterbacks, but their offense was underachieved because their offensive line stunk. Well, they didn't take that into consideration. Are they meeting their needs? Is there balance in the class? I think you can have a great O class, but an average D class, and it's not a great class. I mean, that's why for Notre Dame to be a top 5 class, it's not about getting Xavier Nwankpa. It's not about getting Anthony Lucas. All those things could help from a recruiting ranking standpoint, but to have a genuine top 5 class, one that's going to help you compete for titles, the concern now is how do you finish on offense? Do you get Merriweather and C.J. Williams? Can you get Billy Schrouth back in the fold? Can you maybe pull off an upset for a Zach Rice, something like that? That close is going to be a whole lot more important now that the defense is basically, in the almost close on their side of things. Jay Clampett Investments. Sorry, I'm late to the live. Yep, I haven't seen you in a while, so it's good to see you on there. Is there a better linebacker class than Notre Dame's? If this has been asked, I apologize. Has not been asked. We just flat out said it. There is not a better linebacker class in the country than this. They had the number one linebacker class in the country before Jaylen Sneed committed, and now that he's in the class, it's a no-brainer. Mark Stewart joining the show. Mark, thank you so much. Appreciate you being in the chat tonight, buddy. And appreciate your super chat also quite a bit, man. I really appreciate everybody that's given their time and their money tonight to support us. Is very, very, very much appreciated. Very much appreciated. Let's see here. Nicholas Galley, I was referring to Jake Pope and how he appears to be slipping from us. So, based on your earlier comment, about how you thought there were crystal balls for him, this is why I reiterate my comment about crystal balls. Okay, I think they're perceived as something that I don't know if they're necessarily meant to be. Number two, as I said when he visited Notre Dame, and there was all the excitement about it, that it didn't sit with me because he kind of said the same thing to everybody. And there's a little bit more to the situation. Talked about it on the message board. I'm not going to talk about it, publicly until he's made his decision. There's a little bit more to it than that. AST12321, is there another DN taken 2023? Right now, there could be. It just depends on how they finish the 2022 class. I think they're happy with just the two that they got, but if they don't land another end in this class, then I think they'll push for a third top end in next year's class. Omar Austin says, I'm wearing my IB hat for this one. Wifey is mad. So is she mad that you're in the chat, or is she mad that you're rocking the hat? And is she mad because she doesn't like the hat, or is she mad because she wanted to rock the hat? These we need details, Omar. We need context to this one. Jordan says, you like the Trey Edwards as the third line? I wouldn't take Trey Edwards, just me personally. I think there's 4 or 5 better linebackers, like significantly better linebackers. I know he's ranked pretty high, but when I watch him play, he's more of a poor man's Junior Tuihalamaka, and he doesn't have quite the range and athleticism that he had as a sophomore. I personally would not take him. Now, I would still recruit him because maybe he has a breakout junior year, but based on what I saw last year, he would not be a take for me just yet. Spartan B, who is projected to enroll early for 2022? That one I don't know just yet. Okay, so my wife is in the chat. Angela, how long are you guys keeping him? We still have a lot of questions, so if you could bring me some tea, I would really appreciate that because I'm getting a little bit parched. So yes, I would appreciate that very, very much. Get some more questions here. Yeah, so to the question about early enrollees, I don't have an answer for that one yet. And again, yeah, let me look into that. I know I think Nolan Ziegler's working on being one. I think, yeah, I'd have to go through. We'll inquire about that. But right now, I don't necessarily have those answers at this particular moment. Richard Stevens, give me your score for the Florida State game. I don't have one yet. We talked on it. We did if you haven't seen the show before tonight, or if you're new, we did a Florida State podcast last week. Kind of went over what I think they could do. I kind of see a 17 to 20 point victory if Notre Dame's as good as I think they're going to be, but it's still really early. Richard Stevens also asked, can Singleton be flipped, or is he solid? I think he's solid, but I think he can be flipped if circumstances go a certain way and if Notre Dame stays on him, but I just don't have a lot of confidence that they're going to stay on him. And yeah, that's more my, I don't have a lot of confidence that Coach Taylor is going to stay on him enough to get him. So we'll see if that changes, but that's where I'm at right now. Brian Dembo, does anyone want to battle indie players for defensive players right now? It's a good question. I mean, there are some teams that are not going to back down from anybody, just like Notre Dame's not going to back down from anybody. But Notre Dame is going toe-to-toe with a lot of people right now. Brandon Plenzer, this is a good observation, Brandon. I agree with this. I'm taking Tamir Robinson over Trey Edwards as of right now. I'm taking Tamir Robinson over him. I'm taking Tackett Curtis over him. I'm taking Preston Zinter over him. I mean, there's several linebackers that right now I would take. John A1 says, I'm signed up, Coach. I appreciate that, man. That's awesome. I appreciate that very much. And he's referring to the message board, which officially launched today. which you can see the email address down there. And if you are a member of if you've already signed up via the SI site, just shoot me an email. Send me your receipt and let me know kind of when your end date is, and we'll get you the steps to get onto the board. You don't have to pay twice for that. You can if you want to, but you don't have to do that. So we'll take care of you. Domer, I appreciate this. You're the Marcus Freeman of the Notre Dame beat. You outwork everyone else. The amount of quality content you produce is insane. I appreciate that very much. And big reason for that is what you guys just saw, because my wife's upstairs watching the podcast right now, thinking that it's now, hour and a half in and realizing that we did a 2-hour show earlier that I may need some tea. So I have a great support system. And of course it's, you guys come do it. So we're able to do this because of you all, really. That's what makes it fun. And that's where you get your inspiration when you just, I don't want to do it today. I don't want to watch film. I just want to go relax, watch TV or go for a walk or do something else. It's, hey, I know you all are waiting here for it. So that's what we do. And that's what makes it fun. So no question about it. Omar says, I personally appreciate your integrity. I'm not trying to not trying to preempt kids, especially since silent commits don't always get closed. And that's another reason too, Omar. It's not just about the integrity. That's part of it. This is these kids' moment, but it's also about, I've seen a lot of silent commitments that you say, hey, this kid's silent, or I think this kid's going to go. And then Billy Schrouth, for example, so, it just that's why I say let it play out, because there's no guarantees if a kid is publicly committed, much less silent committed. Ryan Feek says, based on off the Zort's Freeman podcast, is Notre Dame relaxing the previous ideas of who they go after? The administration is not. There have been, Notre Dame's narrow recruiting approach in recent years was a decision by the football staff, not the academic situation, not the administration, not the admissions. That was a football decision. Marcus Freeman being hired, and them getting more players that they hadn't gotten before, thank you, was not a, Marcus Freeman coming in saying, hey, I want to get kids who don't have the grades to get in Notre Dame. Those kids could already come. It's just about, hey, we're going to go after those players who we think can be a fit, because Brian Kelly's not going to let coaches go after kids that aren't going to want to go to class and aren't going to want to do the things the right way. He's not going to do that. But is Brian Kelly making the choice? Hey, maybe we can go after some kids who don't normally fit the profile. If we think through our due diligence they can thrive here, yeah, that's the change. But there's always the opportunity to do that. They didn't have enough coaches that were willing to do that, because a lot of times those kind of players are guys that Bama, Ohio State, Clemson, and Oklahoma and Georgia want, and Notre Dame just hasn't been willing to battle enough for those guys. Levi asks, how much of the perceived lack of momentum in offensive recruiting is about getting those recruits having a longer decision timeline versus the offensive staff not getting it done? Levi, I could accept that premise if they hadn't missed on so many kids. Part of the reason that the offensive staff has a bad reputation right now is because they missed on the big three at running back. They missed on Dallin Hayden. They missed on Nicholas Singleton. They missed on Gavin Sawchuk. You look at offensive line, they missed on Jake Taylor. They made a poor decision, I think, when it comes to Carson Hinsman. To me, you look at with Billy Schrouth, they're just got out recruited there. Now they're trying to make up for it, and there's still time to make up for it. But you got beat by Drew Aller. There's a lot of guys that have committed. Caden Saunders. There's a lot of guys that are committed now to other schools that Notre Dame had a shot or should have got that they didn't get. And so they've already decided. There aren't a whole lot of offensive recruits. The number of offensive commits looking to decide who haven't decided yet is similar to the defensive staff. The difference is the defensive staff's got a lot of their top targets, and the offensive staff has missed on more than they probably should have. Dylan Hoffman says, are all the other 3 linebackers on board, or do you have any fear of them possibly transferring because of the loaded class so far? No. Look, in recruiting nowadays, anything can happen. But I think they're all pretty set. And I think the thing that's interesting is, Ziegler and Burnham, Ziegler kind of recruited Burnham, and then, Burnham and Ziegler have kind of recruited Junior Tuihalamaka. Josh Burnham came down on an unofficial visit the weekend that Junior Tuihalamaka was here. I know I've heard that Ziegler and Burnham and Junior have all been getting on Jaylen Sneed, trying to get him in the class. Because, again, what you have to understand about the message that Marcus Freeman has given all of them is, we could sign 5 linebackers in this class and you're all going to play because of the way he's going to scheme. We're going to play multiple players. You don't have to be in the top 3 to play. if you're in the top 6, you're going to play. And I think that factors into it. And look, they all knew what was coming. They all knew Notre Dame's defensive staff has been very honest with kids about what their goals are this year, numbers. And when Josh Burnham committed, when Junior Tuihalamaka committed, they all knew that they were going to take another linebacker. And so I think, I think that's why I'm not as concerned about it. But again, anything can happen. But right now I'm not concerned about it. The Spanky 4112, my man. If Notre Dame wins the title, screw a sleeveless shirt. I'll be storming the field and streaking at the title game. And if you know him, and I do, that's my boy, he's not lying. He's telling the truth. Oh, goodness. Alex Dunbar, good night, y'all. Enjoy. Thanks for that very much. All right, let's see here. Dylan Hoffman says, I see it being discussed above. With it seemingly Pope out of the picture, does it concern you that Notre Dame could strike out a safety? A little. I mean, I'd like to see them go after guys they want. It'd be concerning from the concern would be, Dylan, more from a recruiting standpoint that, Chris O'Leary in his first year struck out. That'd be a little bit concerning to me. But part of that was by choice. They basically said, we're not taking a plan B at safety. We're only going to go for our plan A guys. And then even some of the plan A guys kind of got dumped because of what they're doing at corner. And we talked about it in a recent show, Dylan. I'm not sure if you saw it, but I think Marcus Freeman's kind of changing the game a little bit when it comes to how to recruit the secondary. And we can get into it again in a future show, but I think that factors into it as well, which lessens my concern about the defense, but it doesn't lessen my concern about the fact that the safeties coach has got to prove they can close, but he's going to get a shot, right? I mean, Xavier Nwakpa's, he's still going to get a shot. No question. No question. Let's see here. Searcher Green, Fort Payne, Alabama here. Been here for a bit. So couple Alabama people on the show tonight. Appreciate that. Let's see here. Plenty of Notre Dame fans in Alabama. I did not know that. Nicholas asks, I believe Benjamin Morrison is announcing his decision on Thursday. He is. We had an article about that at irishbreakdown.com today. We also talked about it in our podcast earlier today, Nicholas, so I'll check that out. How is it looking with him? I think they're in a good position. They got to close, right? It's Alabama, Washington, and Notre Dame are his 3 schools. I would encourage you to check out the show we did earlier today. We talk a lot about that earlier today, but I think they've done a good job with that recruitment. Alex Dunbar, okay, I lied. One more question. How would Max Redfield have fared in a Lee or Freeman defense? I think he would have – that's a good question. I think some of Max's issues weren't necessarily all about the coaching staff, but I think Max in a Clark Lee defense would have been better. I think he would have been even better in a Marcus Freeman defense, but I think he would have been good in either one of them. I think he would have been even better in Mike Elko's defense because Mike Elko was a safeties coach. But, Max is a guy that needed to kind of have a little bit of less on his plate and more just let him go play. Because he wasn't a natural safety. What I mean by that is he was a two-way standout in high school, and there's a lot of people that recruited him as a receiver. So he comes to Notre Dame, and what Max needed was he needed play discipline, he needed technique, he needed assignment correctness. And because Brian Van Gorder just threw so much on their plates, it was he never really got to that point. He was still a good player in his last year. And then, of course, he needed Max's thing. He needed to make some better decisions off the field. But, I think that's something that also needed to change. Jay said, Sneed said he wanted to commit on July 12th because he wants to help Notre Dame win their 12th title. That's awesome. That is really good. Cam A. Preston, would Notre Dame move Bellamy to safety if we land Morrison on Thursday? I don't think that would be the reason why. If they move him to safety, it's because when they all show up, I would imagine if they get Benjamin Morrison, I'd be willing to bet that all 4 of them start off a corner. And then you see who fits. I mean, you're not going to move Jaylen Bellamy to safety until he's gotten his chance to prove if he's one of the better corners. And then I think that they'll go that way, is what I think. Richard Stevens, thanks for the shout out, Brian. Going to make my work week better. Glad I could help. I appreciate you being a part of the show tonight. No question. No question. Daniel Wade said there should be an under-the-table deal to get Freeman to stay once BK is gone. For all we know, that has happened. I have no clue, but if it is going to happen, I hope that they do it, like you said, under the table. That to me is the best way to do it from a health of your program standpoint, not to do the public coach and waiting things. I do not like that. If you want to do it, that's fine. Do it. I'm all for it. Keep Marcus Freeman here. Do it under the table. But in the meantime, I want to enjoy Brian Kelly and Marcus Freeman as a duo. And if Marcus Freeman can get the best out of Brian Kelly, then that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Matt D, of course, hit the subscribe button, share it, hit the notification bell so you don't miss our shows. Absolutely. And also sign up for the IB Premium message board. Absolutely. And you can see the link to that down below. Let's see. Jacob Watson says on those sites, if Moore and Morrison and other guys have great years, they can move up. They can, but they don't always do. That's the problem. Let's see here. Technical technician. Nothing like a fantastic commitment to celebrate with the Irish Breakdown community, as well as my good friend Johnny Black. He never lets me down. There you go. Domer Texas 22. Most excited I've been about defensive recruiting outside of the Tuitt Lynch class. We are not playing around anymore. And that was a really good class. I mean, Lewis, you had Lynch and Tuitt, obviously. You had Ishak Williams in that class. Remember, they got Ben Council in that class. He was a scout top 100 player. That was a really good recruiting class. Didn't they get Eiler Hardy in that class too? It was a really good safety. But yeah, that was Jarrett Grace was in that class. Jarrett Grace, I had a buddy. We were actually talking about Jarrett Grace last night. I was talking to a friend of mine on my way home, and we were just kind of going over some old recruiting classes and talking about linebacker recruiting and all that. And he said something that I didn't really think about, but as I look back on it, I think he's right. So if Jarrett Grace doesn't have the bad knee injury, he's an NFL football player. Remember, Jarrett had stepped in the lineup and had some really good early games. And then he had that bad leg injury. But if he doesn't get hurt, he's probably an NFL player. I'd have loved to see a healthy Jarrett Grace in the Notre Dame starting lineup. We just never saw a healthy Jarrett. Well, we saw him just for a short period of time as a healthy guy. He was part of that class as well, I believe. That was a really good class. But we have not seen a front seven like that until now, this class. We got last few before we wrap up. Rouse Productions. Been listening to your podcast from the beginning. My first time catching a live show. Our daughter will be a sophomore at Notre Dame next year and our first as season ticket holders. That is awesome. Congratulations. That's great. So hopefully you know this. If you've been listening from the beginning, we will have a tailgate before at least Purdue. Definitely plan on doing it then. And I think right now I'm leaning probably towards USC, but we'll see how that goes. And it also follows up with I got my wife to listen to you too, and she's learning so much. She even told me about the Sneed commit. By the way, my daughter stormed the field last year. Props to your daughter for that. Big time. That's the second student that we've heard from. Well, you as a parent, but then we had another student here recently who told us that she stormed the field, which was awesome. So love that. And I'm fired up that your wife told you about the Sneed commitment. That is great. That's being a good husband right there. Being a good husband. Tyler Miles says, this made my day. I was confident he'd commit, but now it's official. And I can't wipe the smile off my face. Absolutely. Brandon says, you're the best, Angela, and she is. William offered with a question. If I subscribe to the SI print subscription now on the IB website, will that also give me access to the message boards? William, it does. I'm going to put a link to the bottom of the channel of the chat, and it's going to explain what to do if you are a SI. If you've already signed up through SI, I'm going to put a link at the end of the chat. So you'll see that down below. Just put that in there. It's going to explain to you what you need to do. And basically all you need to do is you need to email me that you're a subscriber to Irish Breakdown already. And if you have your SI receipt or a way to show me that you are, just because I need to see the end date, because I need to know whether you're monthly or annual, and I need to see that, that when your end date is. And then once you do that, there's just a real easy step to get signed up, and then I will go in and give you free access. So if you signed up for Irish Breakdown through SI, you will get access to the message board. You can also just subscribe to the message board, which is a little bit cheaper than the SI. You just don't get the magazine. But if you also decide you want to go through SI, that's totally fine. You just need to let me know with that information, and it's all in that chat down there. Drunk Vigo, no, Freeman is closing the gap, bro. There's no question about it. No question about it. See, last few questions, and I'm going to have to get out of here because I got a lot of work to do for tomorrow. Angela equals 5-star. Couldn't agree more. Right. Mark Staten. I enjoy the channel. Keep up the good work. Go Irish. We will do our best, Mark. No question about it. No question about it. My wife's going to love some of these comments you guys are making. All right. Ryan Feeks, do you love Shark Week? I've never really partook in Shark Week. My wife asked me about that last week. She goes, what's this Shark Week thing? And I said, I have no idea. Richard Stevens, your podcasts are great. Brian, I appreciate that very, very much. Hey, Bob, 157. Not sure if this has been touched on, but do you know if Sneed will play linebacker or defensive end his senior year? We had an article about this recently, and I believe Coach Payne told us. I'd have to go back and read the article because I didn't do it. Somebody else did the interview. I think Blake Sofa did the interview on that one. But he said he's going to be back playing linebackers. I believe what he said. Let's see here. Dylan Hoffman says the relationship between the backers thus far has been pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, they are connecting quite a bit. And again, I think it started with Nolan Ziegler, and then it's kind of built out from there. And I mean, the Josh Burnham driving, I think it's like 3.5 hours from where he lives down on campus on an unofficial with his whole family. Part of it was because he wanted to talk to the coaches face to face, and they're going to do their official in the fall, so he wanted to get down here. But he came down twice. But one of those times is to be on campus while Junior Tuilamoke was here, because it was to say, look, come join. If Josh Burnham was just a me guy, he could have been like, no, I don't want that guy to come to Notre Dame. You know, we may end up playing the same position, but that's not how it was, and that's where you need to be. That's where you need to be. Let's see here. Domer says, is it a size thing with Pope? No. I'll get into it when his decision is made, but it's not that. Notre Dame likes him as a talent. They like him quite a bit. It has nothing to do with that. All righty. Let's see if we have some other questions here before we wrap up. Dylan Hoffman says, I just think it'd have to be some enticing as Xavier to be like, look, you are the next Kyle Hamilton for 2-3 years, that he'd be a great finishing touch on this class. I don't think that works as well as fans think. If anything, it hurt Ohio State with Brennan Vernon. You don't want to say, hey, you're the next so-and-so. Most of these kids, especially the highly ranked kids, they want to be the first whoever they are. I mean, Xavier Nwakpa doesn't want to be the next Kyle Hamilton. He wants to be the next – he wants to be the first Xavier Nwakpa. I think what you do is you use Kyle Hamilton's role to show him, hey, here's kind of the role we have for you. Here's how you fit. You know, Kyle was an All-American. You have similar skill set, but you don't do the whole you're the next Kyle Hamilton thing. I think that can be a little bit problematic here. And these last few, I'm going to wrap up here. I really appreciate everybody being part of the show tonight. Emma Eckstein, haha, I'll join the trend. I stormed the field too. Best day of my life. That's totally awesome. I love it. I absolutely love it. That's a lot of fun. Let's see here. Rich, Brian at irishbreakdown.com. I try to make my email address as easy as possible for y'all. So yeah, that's definitely, that reach me, just send me there, send me that info. We talked about that. And, that's where you're going to go. So, all right. I think that's it. So, hey, I appreciate everybody being part of the show tonight. A lot of you were part of the show last night and tonight. Before you leave, do me a favor. Please hit the like button. Also, please subscribe to our channel if you have not already. Hit the notification bell so that when we do shows like this, you're made aware of it. And so I appreciate that. If you want to be a even deeper part of our community, obviously you can sign up for our message board at boards@irishbreakdown.com. My wife built that. We've been wanting a board for a while. We realized it wasn't going to happen through other channels, so we just went ahead and said we're going to do one on our own. It is separate from SI, but if you go to irishbreakdown.com, there's an article talking about the message board with links, but it explains what to do if you're already an SI member. You can just sign up for the message board, which is $4.99 a month or $49.99 a year. You can join the IB Booster Club. It's all explained at boards.irishbreakdown.com. But if you want to be on the SI side of things, you want to join through SI, and you'll get access to the SI magazine. You can go that route too. And if you do that, you will still get access to the message board. There's a little couple steps, but they're easy steps. And so you will still get that. So either way works. Either way is going to get you access to the Irish Breakdown message board. So check that out at the address below, boards.irishbreakdown.com. We also have a link in the description below. We have a link to obviously the message board. We also have a link to our Irish Breakdown store, which you can get hats, you can get shirts, hoodies, polos, mugs, all types of fun things. When my wife brought me my tea tonight, it was on our Irish Breakdown mug. You can get this. I'm going to do a little merchandise selling right now. But however you are a part of our community, whether it's just in chats, whether it's chats and also giving super chats, whether it's just being part of the community, whether it's just reading all the free stories, no matter what it is, no matter what role you play, if you're a part of our community, we appreciate you. We love you. We thank you. And all of you are what make this whole thing work. Because otherwise, if it wasn't for y'all, I'd just be some weird dude that talks to his computer at night with nobody listening. Okay. And that would be sad. But because of all of y'all, we have an audience. We have people that love Notre Dame football. And our channel has grown tremendously during a slow time of the year. Our site has grown. It's been a ton of fun, and it's all because of y'all. So I appreciate everybody being part of the show tonight. We'll be back tomorrow at 1 p.m. to talk about the newcomers that we expect to have an impact at Notre Dame in 2021. So join us then, and we'll talk to you soon.